"You think you've changed, Clara," he sneered. "You'll always belong to someone stronger." That voice, her ex-husband's sharp and cold, still echoed in her head the night she dragged a half-dead stranger from the snow. She didn't know then that helping him would pull her back into a world of power, blood, and quiet redemption. Sometimes survival isn't about running, it's about staying. Before we dive in, let me know. What time are you listening to this, and where are you? Drop a comment below, we'd love to hear from you. The smell of burnt coffee lingered from the night before. Clara sighed, dropped her bag under the counter, and clicked on the overhead lights. A second later, the heater coughed awake barely. In the back corner, Eli sat at his usual table legs, swinging pencil tapping against the wood. If the snow keeps falling, he asked, "Do you think anyone's still gonna come eat?" She tied her apron. "Someone always needs breakfast." He nodded like it made sense. It did not really, but kids trusted simple truths more than grown-ups did. Clara brushed a finger along the chain at her neck, silver worn smooth at the edges. One kitchen light had been flickering for a week. The tax letter from the city sat unopened beneath a receipt book left since Friday. Half a cup of coffee cooled beside the register, while she stared at the earnings from the last 3 days. Sometimes it was the lying she missed. Daniel had been good at that until the lies turned into fists and slurred apologies. The court kept him away now, at least on paper. The messages still came. "Can we talk? I've changed. You owe me a chance." Delete. White palms on a dish towel, as if that could clean anything. By noon, 2 regulars came and went. Around 1, Thomas Rizzo appeared, flour dust on his jacket, smelling faintly of oregano. "Brought you this," he said, offering a half-empty bag. "We had extra. You didn't have to." "I know." His eyes swept the room. Quaint place. Warm. "You, though, look frozen." A quick laugh escaped her. "I'm fine. Didn't say you weren't." They talked a little longer. Nothing deep, just the easy language of neighbors. Then he left. The sound of the door closing lingered. Warmth didn't. Eli sat curled on the couch upstairs, books spread across his lap, cartoons, murmuring in the background. Clara counted the till, scrubbed the counters, turned the chairs upside down. Then something. A dull thump. Then again. Clara paused, hands still damp from rinsing the sink. Another sound, someone stumbling against the brick. Maybe a drunk, or a regular too proud to ask for help. She flicked off the main light and waited behind the door, breath shallow. The noise came again, heavier this time. Logic told her to lock up and stay upstairs. Instead, her hand found the bolt. At first, no one was there. Then the shape moved half buried in snow, one arm outstretched. His coat was soaked breath, faint. She crouched, fingers trembling as they pressed to his throat. A heartbeat. Barely. Dragging him through the back door, snow melting beneath their feet, she felt his weight sag against her. Not from size, but from surrender. Kneeling beside him, she unfastened the buttons of his coat. The fabric clung to his skin, dark with blood and melting frost. A metallic scent rose through the cold. Not long out there, but long enough to turn pale. Mama Eli stood halfway down the stairs, barefoot, rubbing his eyes. Clara blocked the view. "It's fine, baby. Just someone caught in the storm. Is he sick? He's just cold. Go back upstairs and stay under the blanket." He lingered, then climbed back up. Only when the last creak faded did she return to the stranger. Water towels, a clean shirt from the lost and found bin routine, steadied her hands. His eyes fluttered open while she dabbed at the wound. Not fully conscious, but not gone either. The towel stilled midair. "Don't be afraid," he murmured, voice cracked, but even. "I'm not here to cause trouble." She passed him a mug of hot water. Tea had run out last week, but warmth mattered more than taste. He took it slowly, as if measuring her reaction. "Raphael," he said. "My car's stuck near Pulaski. Snow hit hard. Couldn't call for help. You can stay till morning. There's a bench near the kitchen. The heat's patchy, but better than out there." He nodded. "Thanks." Something in his posture stayed tight alert beneath the blanket she'd draped over him. "You're not a cop, are you?" "No, nothing more." The mug slipped from his hand, shattering on the tile. The sound jolted her. Eli's footsteps creaked again overhead. She turned toward the stairs pulse quick. Raphael raised a hand. "Sorry, didn't mean to startle anyone. Just sit down," she muttered, grabbing a rag. "You're making this harder than it needs to be. I don't plan on staying." "Good." Their eyes met. No heat, just weight. The mess cleaned, he settled back on the bench patient like a man used to waiting. He slept light breath, even but never quite falling deep. His face in the dim light looked different than when he'd first arrived. Lines are more defined, jaw tight. A small scar cut across the side of his neck, faint but visible. His hands weren't soft either. She'd seen hands like that before, not from labor, but from fights people didn't talk about. Across the street, a dark car slowed, idled for just a second, then pulled away. She never noticed. Raphael didn't move, but in the dark his eyes opened. He watched the ceiling for a long time. He wasn't cold anymore. The first thing she noticed was the sound. Clara came down in her robe hair, still damp from a rushed shower, and found Raphael crouched near the radiator with a screwdriver between his fingers. "You know how to fix those?" she asked. He glanced up. "Used to work with my hands. Long time ago." The warmth in the room felt different, steadier. He'd cleared the tables, stacked the chairs by the wall. Eli sat nearby, eating toast and staring at him like a small detective. "Do you have kids?" Eli asked suddenly. Raphael paused, then smiled, a slow, uneven kind of smile. "No, but I used to think about it." That made Eli grin. Clara didn't. She just poured coffee and watched how easily Raphael took up space, how natural it looked for him to belong somewhere. Light spilled through the windows, pale but kind. Clara went about her work trying to act as if nothing had changed, yet every movement, sweeping, pouring, wiping, felt slightly off balance with him there. A knock sounded at the door, not loud, just deliberate. A man stood outside in a gray jacket, eyes scanning the place before meeting hers. "Sorry we're not open yet," she said. He didn't leave. "You seen a dark sedan last night? Maybe parked close?" His tone was casual in the way that carried weight. Clara shook her head. Didn't notice. Behind her, Raphael had gone still. He stepped quietly out of view, slipping toward the storage room. The man's gaze flicked past her shoulder but didn't push it. "Well, if you do," he said, tapping the glass once with his knuckle, "call it in." When he left, Clara turned toward the back. Raphael emerged, wiping his hands with a rag as though he'd been fixing something the entire time. Who was that? Probably someone who likes asking questions. That's not an answer. He met her eyes. Then maybe don't ask. Clara waited for more. Nothing came. The quiet between them felt heavier than any threat. She wanted him gone, wanted the small, dull safety back. But curiosity stayed sharp as the chill outside what kind of man froze half to death, fixed a heater, and spoke like every word had to earn its place. He caught the look. "I'll leave once the road clears." "Good." The word landed flat, unconvincing even to her own ears. That afternoon, Raphael packed his bag, left a folded bill on the counter, too much for coffee and shelter. Beside it lay a card with a number, nothing else. "In case you get into trouble." "I won't. Keep it anyway." No reply, just a nod as he stepped into the cold. By evening, the kitchen was clean. Eli's homework done, laundry folded under the blur of television noise. Normalcy almost held. Then came the crash glass, breaking sharp and close. Her pulse jumped. The phone was halfway to her hand when she stopped. A rock lay among the shards. Scrawled across the front glass in black marker were 2 words, "Stay away." Her stomach dropped, not at the threat, but at how fast her thoughts went to Raphael. Clara swept the shards into a dustpan, careful not to wake Eli. The silence was so complete she could hear the clock ticking down the hall. When the last fragments were gone, she sat at the counter and uncurled the card. Just a number, no name. Her thumb pressed against the edge, almost tearing it in 2. Forgetting would be smarter, pretending none of this had touched her easier. Yet the hand didn't move. The card stayed. Clara slipped the card into the drawer beneath the register, shut it gently, and turned off the light. Upstairs, Eli shifted in his sleep. Before noon, 2 men and a woman in gray coats arrived with clipboards and polite smiles. They asked questions, lifted lids, scribbled notes. Clara followed them, voice even. "We passed every check last quarter. This one's from a complaint," the woman replied. 3 hours later, the notice hung on the glass, temporary closure violation pending review. The paper looked harmless, but her knees weakened. Thomas stopped by that evening, trying not to show pity. "Talk to someone downtown. Maybe you know a guy who can fix this. I don't know people like that." He left a loaf of bread for Eli. When the door closed, the room seemed to shrink. Clara sat among upturned chairs, gripping the silver pendant until it hurt. Tears came quiet, reluctant. Not for the money, but for the collapse of something built with both hands. The phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello, it's Raphael." The sound froze her. "I heard about the inspection," he said. "Do you need help?" "How would you know? I watched the people who once pulled me out of the snow. I'll be fine." "I believe you. But let me make sure you get the chance to prove it." The line went dead. By dusk, he stood at the doorcoat collar raised. "I said I didn't need help, and yet here I am." He placed a folder on the counter. "Read it." A retraction of the complaint. Stamped, signed. "How did you? Someone owed me." His eyes didn't flinch. "Next time, read before you sign." The words hit harder than they should have. "I didn't ask for charity. It's not charity." He leaned in slightly. "No one can help you until you decide to stand." Clara stayed quiet. His gaze drifted to the quiet kitchen. "You'll manage." He reached the door. She almost called after him, but didn't. "The hearth," he murmured. "It means fire. Don't let it die." Then he left. The paper folded neatly in her hands. The world hadn't changed yet. Breathing came easier. Counters cleaned, chairs straightened, floor swept routine, steadied her pulse. Eli padded downstairs, hair sticking up. "Mom, is the cafe open again tomorrow? Someone fixed it. Someone helped." He grinned, satisfied. Later, when the lights dimmed, thoughts drifted to Raphael, the calm certainty in his voice, the way he refused to comfort her. Somehow, that made it easier to breathe. Palm resting on the counter's worn wood, she whispered, "Maybe that's enough." The next evening, as tables were wiped clean, the bell above the door rang. A man entered, not rushed, not shivering. The door closed softly as if he owned the hinges. His coat was long, scarf neat. Clara froze, cloth still in hand. "We're closing." "That's all right," he replied, stepping forward. "I only need a few minutes. We're not serving. I'm not here for food." His voice was smooth, rehearsed. "I'm here for clarity about your affiliations." Clara straightened. "I run a cafe. That's not how people are telling it." He placed a card on the counter, silver snake curled around a number. "This city is changing. Lines are being drawn. You may think you've stayed out of it, but you haven't. I don't pick sides." "Then let me rephrase, you already did. When you let a man like Raphael Moretti into your kitchen, into your life, I let in a man freezing to death." He smiled, eyes untouched. "You let in someone who doesn't belong to the world of warmth and breakfast specials. And now, Ms. Duval, neither do you." He nodded once and turned to leave. "Should you need protection, real protection, we'll be waiting." The bell barely stirred as he stepped out. Clara double-locked the doors, sat in the back with the lights off. The cafe felt smaller, as if the walls listened. Her fingers found Raphael's card, turning it over and over. Daniel used to come like that, calm, dressed, sharp, smiling like a storm before it hit. In their last year, his threats grew quiet. "Keep quiet, Clara, or you'll hear what a bone sounds like when it breaks." Those words lived under her skin. Now they surfaced steady as breath. Clara tore a slip of paper and wrote, "I will not run." It went up inside the cabinet beside a jar of rosemary and a photo of her and Eli at the beach. Then bed-still dress shoes on. Days slid by in uneasy calm. Cars idled too long, unfamiliar faces lingered. A woman ordered coffee, smiled too much, left it untouched. Still, the cafe open bread-baked menu chalked Eli sent to school. Shadows drew more of her attention than people did. On the third night, a dark sedan waited across the street. Raphael sat behind the wheel, Mateo beside him. "She's not part of this," Mateo said. "She is now. She's not ready. She's braver than she knows." Mateo's tone lowered. "You sure she's worth it?" Raphael's gaze stayed on the windows. "No, but she reminds me who I was before I stopped asking." Before dawn, a paper bag waited at the door, still warm. Inside, bread tied with twine and a note in neat handwriting. "One day you'll have to choose." She stood at the threshold watching snow dissolve into slush. No fear, only fatigue. The loaf came in unwrapped set on the counter. No threat, no red scrawl. Just bread, just warning. Eli patted in blanket, trailing. "You're up early, so are you." He climbed onto a stool. "Is this for us a nod? A slice cut?" The note fluttered on the sill when the door opened to morning. That night, the hearth buzzed louder than usual. Chairs, scraped voices tangled, the espresso machine hissed. Clara wiped her hands on a towel, spotting two men at the back table. They hadn't ordered. One tapped the wood, the other watched the counter like waiting for someone. "They're not here for food," Thomas murmured from the sink. "I know." Pouring another cup steadied her pulse. When the trash needed taking out, she didn't ask Thomas. The bag tied boots grinding salt and slush, she stepped into the alley. The door clicked behind. One man waited. "Ms. Duval," he said, smiling like he knew her secrets. "Quick question. You know a man named Raphael Lazaro number funny? Someone thinks you're worth removing." Her grip on the bag tightened until the plastic burned her palm. He took a step forward, then jerked back. Raphael's fist landed once. The man fell. The second turned and hit the wall before he could shout. Snow slid from the ledge above. The bag slipped from her hand. Raphael caught her wrist, not rough, not soft, and pulled. "Let go," she said, stumbling after him. "You can't just hit people. They were going to hurt you." You don't know that he didn't speak again until they reached the parked car, headlights off. "I didn't think. I just moved." Clara trembled more than she wanted. Eli Mateo's with him. He's safe. Calling the police would have made sense. Instead, she pulled the coat tighter, watching the streets blur past. The warehouse sat behind a sagging fence wall streaked with rust. Raphael drove through the gate and parked. The place smelled of oil and dust, warmed only by a small heater, near two cots. Eli slept under a blanket. Mateo read a newspaper, calm as a man waiting for a train. "You're safe," Raphael said quietly. The bag slipped from Clara's shoulder. "You think this is normal, no? Then why drag us here because you looked scared? And I couldn't walk away. That's not your choice." "I know. But it felt like mine." Her gaze drifted to Eli before she sank to the floor, too tired to keep fighting. "This isn't helping. I'm not trying to help," he said. "Just keeping you breathing." Hours passed. Eli didn't stir. Clara leaned against the wall while Raphael sat across the room, one knee-raised gun loose in his hand. "Why did you come back? I owe you. For the coffee. For not asking. That's not a reason." "Maybe not. You're not a good man, are you?" "No." The quiet stretched. He shifted slightly. "Ever heard it?" he asked. "Keep the hearth lit and the wolves stay away. I'm not a flame. No. But you keep one burning." He leaned back, breath falling in rhythm with hers until both went still. Raphael drove without a word, hands steady on the wheel, eyes fixed ahead. Clara sat beside him. Eli slept in the back. They should have been heading toward the hearth, but instead he turned toward River North and stopped before a glass tower. The doorman greeted him by name. The apartment was too polished, too still, one side facing the frozen river, the other the skyline of another world. "I don't want to be kept somewhere," she said from the doorway. "You're not being kept," Raphael replied. "You can leave anytime. The door's not locked." Her hand found the knob cool under her fingers, but it stayed there unmoved. Morning brought Mateo with paper bags of groceries, a folded newspaper, and the easy tone of a man repeating an old routine. "So this is her," he said, eyes curious. "The woman of hearth." Clara paused mid-unpacking. What does that mean? It means he let you in, Mateo replied, slicing through twine with a pocket knife. He doesn't do that. Not for anyone. Not since Naples. I didn't ask him to. No one ever asks, he replied, smiling faintly. Doesn't make it less true. Raphael spoke to Eli, asking about school and drawings. The boy answered between bites of toast, unfazed by his sharp tone. From the corner, Raphael watched a faint approval flickering across his face. Days blurred. He left at night, returned before dawn, never saying where he'd been. Clara stopped asking. He fed a limping stray behind the dumpsters, left scraps each morning, came back with bruised hands and shirts scrubbed too clean. By day he fixed what was broken. Door hinges, cabinet handles, Eli's toy car. His movements were deliberate, as if control itself were a kind of penance. When he spoke, words came plain and measured. One Thursday he drove them through Little Italy. "Wait here," he said, stepping out with an envelope. Through the windshield, she saw him meet a nun outside a church. The woman took the money, kissed his cheek, whispered something that made him look away. "You do this often?" Clara asked when he returned. "Every month. Why, someone has to." That evening, he cooked. Garlic and butter filled the small kitchen. Eli hovered near the stove, laughing when Raphael ignored his questions. Clara set the table, unsure why the air felt so fragile. At dinner, Eli announced, "You cook better than Mom." Raphael smiled. "She taught me." Clara laughed until her chest ached. For a while, nothing demanded explanations. Afterward, they cleaned together. At the sink, she turned to pass him a plate and found him close. Neither moved. He stepped back. "I don't want to break anything peaceful." Her smile thinned, but she didn't move away. Later, the apartment was quiet. Raphael sat at the table, a gun beside a half glass of water. Clara hesitated in the doorway. His phone vibrated. He answered, voice low. "Understood." "What is it?" she asked. "They've made their move." He took his jacket, holstered the gun. "How long will you be gone?" He didn't answer. His gaze caught on the ring of water from her glass. Clara didn't ask again. He left before dawn, the door closing softly like a secret choosing silence. A week passed without word. Clara reopened the cafe, wiped tables that didn't need wiping, brewed coffee no one drank. The place felt off, like it held its breath. Thomas came each morning to restock, humming off-key to fill the quiet. He never asked about Raphael. Neither of them said his name anymore. On Friday, a man she didn't recognize walked in after closing. His coat was expensive, his smile practiced. He set a plain envelope on the counter. "For you, Ms. Duval." "What is it?" "Consider it a courtesy." He left before she could open it. Inside were photos grainy, taken from a distance. Her face, Eli's small frame, the cafe sign. One was from the park near their apartment, another from Eli's schoolyard. At the bottom of the envelope, a note written in neat block letters. "Choose your side soon." Clara called Raphael that night. One ring silence. Again. A third. On the fourth, a recorded voice. The number no longer existed. Her hand trembled around the phone. Maybe he'd gone underground. Maybe that's how men like him vanished. Still, the emptiness stayed heavy and unmoving. Eli snored softly in the next room. Clara opened her notebook, the one for grocery lists, and wrote, "I thought I could trust someone again. I thought I was done being the fool." The words looked foreign. She closed the book, but the sentence lingered like breath on glass. Every creak sounded like a step, every gust a warning. Before dawn, Thomas called, voice rough. "Clara, you need to come." The back of the hearth was blackened. Kitchen walls, cracked grease dripping down the tiles. Smoke clung to her clothes. Someone had set a fire, small, deliberate. Tomas's forehead was cut, swelling fast. "They waited out back," he said. "Asked where you were. I told them I didn't know." "Did they take anything?" He shook his head. "Just made a mess." Clara knelt by the ruined stove. The metal was still warm under her fingers. She picked up a scorched spoon, tossed it into the trash. "They can't take what matters." Tomas frowned. "What's that? No answer." Police called it vandalism, wrote nothing useful left. That afternoon, Clara swept glass and ash, steady but slow. Her hands faltered only when the broom caught a singed photo of her mother. No tears. Grief had lost its currency long ago. A black car stopped at the curb. Mateo stepped out, coat dusted white. One knock. "You did right getting out," he said, glancing at the suitcase. "He wanted you to know he's still watching. Watching isn't the same as being here. You're safer this way." "Tell him," she said flatly, "I don't need anyone watching." Mateo left the key on the table and walked back through the snow. Clara leaned her forehead against the door, exhaled a breath heavier than grief. Later, she lay beside Eli, traced his small hand against hers, and drifted off as the heater clicked silent. Morning felt wrong. The hearth was colder light, slow to stir. She came alone to salvage what hadn't burned papers, a few tools. Thomas had begged her not to. She'd promised it would be quick. The street lay empty winter, holding its breath. The key stuck in the lock. The kitchen no longer smelled of coffee. Stillness everywhere. Halfway to the office movement. The shove knocked her into the counter, another stole her breath. A hand twisted her wrist behind her back. "Quiet," a voice hissed. "We're not here for money." Her elbow found a rib. A fist found her stomach. She folded, dragged toward the cold room. Door slammed. Lock turned. "You should have known better," one said. "There's always a cost for helping men like him." They tied her wrists, gagged her left, her in the humming dark. She fought the cord until it burned, until blood slicked the rope and it gave. The rag dropped. Kicks rattled the door once, twice, until her legs shook. Then it burst open. Raphael filled the frame, breath rough. Two men lay crumpled behind him. He crossed the room and tore the rag from her hand. "I'm late," he said. Her stare didn't waver. "You brought this. You made them see me." His jaw tightened. You don't get to want anything. You hurt people and play savior. Like that erases it." He went still. Blood marked his knuckles, dark and half-dried. Eyes dropped to the floor. "I told you to stay away," she said. "And I didn't," he murmured. "I couldn't. Why, I've lost too many people to watch you become another." Her throat tightened. "I hate you." "Then don't." The words cracked her composure. She pressed her palms to her face, not to hide tears, but to stop them. Sirens echoed faintly. Raphael checked the bodies, then crouched near her. His hand hovered at her shoulder. "I didn't mean to drag you in," he said. "You did. I know. Now what? We clean up," he said. "Then keep breathing." He reached for her hand. She didn't take it. She drew her knees close while he watched the street, waiting for another threat that hadn't yet arrived. When she met his eyes again, anger had thinned to something rawer. Not forgiveness, but no longer open wound. He looked away first. The sirens faded. The safe house sat on the edge of Joliet, half hidden by trees. The porch light flickered, uncertain it wanted to live. Raphael shut the door and set his gun on the counter. The faint scent of sawdust lingered in the room. Clara dropped her bag near the doorway. "I don't want to stay here. I know," he said, calm but firm. "It's the safest place right now." Her jaw tightened. "You always decide what's safe. I decide what keeps people breathing." Eli was safe. Thomas had taken him to a friend's place in the city, knowing that should have eased her. It didn't. Raphael sat cross-legged on the floor, cleaning the gash on his arm with alcohol. The silence between them was heavy, but not cruel. She found herself watching the way he breathed through the sting without flinching. "I didn't know you could feel pain." He looked up, eyes shadowed. Who doesn't? Something in his tone loosened the knot in her chest. For the first time, she saw how tired he was, not the kind of tired sleep could fix, but the kind that built layer by layer over years of doing things no one should have to. She leaned forward. "You should rest." "Can't. The minute I stop, it catches up." "What does—" He gave a short laugh. "Everything." When the bleeding stopped, he poured 2 glasses of water and handed her one. His hands were steady again. For a moment, she thought he was done talking. Then he said quietly, "There was a man once, worked for me, stole something small. I sent someone to handle it." She didn't interrupt. When it was done, he continued, voice rough, "I learned he'd done it to pay for his sister's medicine. I ordered both of them gone." Clara swallowed. "You killed them?" He nodded once. "After that, I stopped believing in right and wrong. They're luxuries for people who still sleep well." The words landed like gravel in her throat. She wanted to be disgusted to pull back, but the honesty in his voice wouldn't let her. "So what do you believe in now?" He looked at her directly. "In people. A few of them. Sometimes one." Something shifted between them, quiet, unspoken. Not forgiveness, but recognition. One scar knowing another. The heater clicked on. Clara reached for her notebook, then let it be. Words felt useless. She watched him instead, the stillness in his shoulders, the calm that came only when he thought no one noticed. Without thinking, she touched his hand. Not comfort, just proof he was real. His fingers twitched, but stayed. "You shouldn't," he murmured. "I know." The space between them thinned. No promises, no confessions, only two people too tired to keep running from themselves. Dawn leaked through the blinds. Clara brewed coffee in the dented kettle. Raphael stood on the porch phone to his ear. His tone was low-clipped. She caught fragments south docks. Vance's men, already moving. He came back. "You should go," he said. "It's starting." Starting. Vance took the southern port. He's coming for everything. Clara crossed her arms. "And you're walking into that. It's mine to end. Then what happens to me?" "Leave. Take Eli. Start over." Her gaze steadied. "You think I can just make coffee again after this?" No reply. The kettle whistled. Neither moved. When she woke, the bed beside her was cold. The car-gone coffee untouched. Raphael had vanished the way storms do, leaving only the sound of things settling. By noon, Mateo arrived older, worn in ways time didn't explain. He handed over a phone. If he doesn't call, he said it means he's killing someone, or someone's killing him. The black screen stared back. No number, no signal, no promise. Mateo waited for a reply that never came. "I can take you to the station," he said. "You and the boy can be gone." Clara looked toward the window, snow drifting in thin ribbons. "And if I go, then you live. And if I stay," his eyes met hers, "then you'll learn what he really is." The decision came quiet like air filling a vacuum. No more running from other people's violence if silence made her part of it. Joliet fell behind before night. The road north blurred. Thoughts outran the headlights. Thomas was home above the bakery. Eli played with a wooden train, safe, unaware. "You look like you've already decided," Thomas said. "I just need you to keep him a few days. No questions. Be careful." She kissed Eli's hair, lingered. "Listen to Thomas, okay?" A nod sleepy. "When are you coming back? Soon." She lied. 2 blocks away, a small cafe stayed open out of habit. She ordered nothing. Opened her notebook. The pen hovered, then moved. "I used to think fear kept me alive. Maybe it did. But silence keeps me small." Her hand trembled. Another line slower. "I've been afraid of men, of noise, of anger. But I'm more afraid of never doing anything about it." The page tore clean. Folded. Tucked into her coat. Sirens moaned somewhere distant. A television above the counter showed the South Pier 2 men dead police, calling it gang activity. No need for names. She already knew who stood at the center. A man turned from the counter, lowering his paper. "You worked at the hearth, didn't you?" Pulse jumped. Who's asking just someone who used to eat there? "But if I were you, I'd keep moving. Vance is asking about you. Thinks you're Lazaro's girl. I'm nobody's anything. Tell him that," he said, walking out. The sky had dulled to the color of dirty snow by the time she reached the river. Industrial blocks stretched silent, half collapsed. A rusted fence lined the docks. Footprints half filled with slush led ahead. Each step tightened her pulse. A crack split the air once then again. She froze. Another shot, then stillness. Running would have been easy. Instead, she pressed forward. Smoke's metallic tang reached her first. A half-open door gave way under her hand. Knees unsteady, grip firm. A single bulb swung overhead. Voices argued deeper in the dark men, angry, afraid. Another flash. She dropped behind a stack of crates, heartbeat hammering loud enough to betray her. Through the noise came a voice rough, commanding, unmistakable. Raphael. Relief and fear collided. She could have turned back, let him finish what he'd started. She didn't. Fingers brushed the notebook in her pocket. Silence keeps me small. One slow breath. Step forward. The men hadn't seen her yet. The place reeked of gunpowder, sweat, fear too old to hide. She kept moving. For the first time, Clara Duval walked toward danger because surviving had never been the same as living. Near the docks, a body slumped against the wall, coat soaked with blood. Between coughs came a name, Luca Ferry, one of Raphael's. "Please," he rasped, gripping her sleeve. "Help me and I'll take you to him." The words hit like light through dark. No hesitation. The scarf tore free, pressed to his side. Reckless, yes, but cleaner than waiting. They moved through the back alleys where the city lost its edges, following a map Luca drew in trembling lines across her palm. His voice kept breaking, half from pain, half from fear. "He's close. We just need to cross the bridge." She tightened her grip on his arm, urging him forward. By the time they reached the old industrial block, his weight had doubled. He pointed toward a narrow building with shattered glass. "In there." She pushed the door open. The shot came before the echo. Luca jerked once and fell his head, striking the floor with a dull crack. Blood spread quickly, too warm for winter. Clara froze. The smell of gunpowder stung her throat. A voice drifted from the darkness. "You should have run when you could." Giancarlo Vance stepped from the shadows, composed as if they were meeting for coffee. His coat hung open dark fabric, moving slightly with the draft. Every line of him was calm, deliberate. "I've been curious," he said, stopping a few feet away. "The woman who made Raphael forget the rules. That's no small feat." Clara's pulse thudded against her skin. "I don't know what you think I did." "Oh, I think you know exactly," he replied. "He used to be predictable. Ruthless, yes, but clean. Then you happened, and now his empire leaks emotion." He reached out, brushed dust from the edge of a broken table. "Do you love him?" She didn't answer. "That's fine," Vance said softly. "He loved my brother, in his own way, then killed him anyway. I wonder if you'll prove more valuable dead or alive." The gun in his hand gleamed dully. He didn't raise it yet. He didn't need to. The certainty in his posture said enough. He stepped closer, his voice dropping. "Let's see if Raphael's woman is worth a single bullet." Two men emerged from the stairwell behind him. One grabbed her arm, the other bound her wrists. Rope bit into her skin. She stumbled but stayed upright. Vance circled her slowly. "You think he'll come for you?" Her heart hammered, but her voice held. "No, but he'll remember." The smirk faded. His eyes hardened flat and colorless. "You sound like him." He pressed the gun to her temple. The metal was cold, unshaking. She saw Daniel instead, his face, his rage, the night he swore she'd never escape. Same smell of alcohol, same promise of pain. But she wasn't that woman anymore. When Vance raised the gun, she didn't flinch. Gunfire shattered the room before he could fire. Shouts from the street. Vance cursed, ducked, motioned to his men. The grip on her wrist loosened. She twisted, grabbed the knife from a dead man's belt. The blade cut her palm, but she kept pulling until the rope snapped. The sting cleared her head more than fear ever had. Smoke thickened. Orders barked. Someone screamed. She dropped to the floor and crawled toward the hall. A shot cracked close enough to shower her with splinters. Her knee burned. The corridor stretched ahead, glass crunching under boots, echoes fading toward chaos. A figure cut through the haze. Raphael. He knelt, checked for wounds that would kill. His jacket carried the smell of gunpowder and rain. "You shouldn't be here." "I know." Her voice broke but didn't fail. If I hadn't come, I'd still be dying, just slower. He closed his eyes, opened them again. Something altered there, fear or recognition. Pulling her upright, he steadied her until she could stand. Gunfire returned, distant. "Can you walk?" She nodded. He guided her out, each step deliberate. Snow kept falling, indifferent to what burned beneath it. The house still smelled of smoke when they returned. Raphael carried her in and lowered her onto the couch. The bandage on her arm was too tight, but she didn't ask him to loosen it. The place hadn't changed. Same walls, same low hum from the refrigerator, yet everything seemed smaller, as if the space remembered what they'd survived. He poured water, set the glass beside her, then sat across the room. Neither spoke. The silence felt dense, made of all the things they couldn't name. Clara tried to steady her breath, but each inhale scraped against a thought she couldn't quiet. When Matteo arrived, his expression said more than words. "We found who sold her location," he told Raphael. "It came from within. Raphael didn't move. Huluka Ferry." The name struck like metal. Clara blinked once, needing a moment to match it to the man who'd begged her for help. The scarf she'd used to stop his bleeding was still folded in her bag, stiff with dried blood. Raphael's hand tightened on the armrest. He was ours. He was desperate, Matteo said. Vance had his brother. Raphael's jaw worked, but no words came. The silence returned thicker, sharper than before. When Matteo left, the door clicked shut and the sound still made Clara flinch. Raphael turned to her. "You shouldn't have trusted him." "I didn't know. You don't get to not know in this world." His tone cut deeper than he meant. She met his stare eyes hollow. "Then maybe I shouldn't have trusted you either." The words hung like smoke after a fire, no way to breathe around them. Hours passed without speech. She wrapped her own hand this time. He paced near the window, his shadow stretching and folding with passing headlights. Every so often, he glanced her way as if to confirm she was still there. "You think control keeps you safe," she said finally, "but look what it costs." He turned, voice low. "It's the only thing that ever worked." For who, no answer. She stepped onto the balcony. Cold bit at her skin. The city below throbbed with faint siren snow graying under the lamps. "I used to think if I stayed quiet, the world would leave me alone," she murmured. "But quiet's just another way to die." He moved closer. "I don't want you dying for me." "Then let me live." He came beside her near enough that their breath tangled. "Because I don't know how," he said. For a beat, nothing moved, just the cold rail under their hands, the city humming beneath them, and the tired ache of two people with nothing left to justify. "I don't even know how to hate you anymore," she whispered. "Then don't." It wasn't cruel, only bare. She looked down, drained not by fear, but by years of holding it. They stayed until the cold pushed them apart. She lay on the couch. She wanted to say something to pull them back from that quiet edge, but no words came. When she woke, the chair was empty, his coat gone. A folded note lay under his lighter. "When it's over, if you still need a place to come back to hearth is waiting." The handwriting was sharp, certain, from a man who didn't expect to be read twice. She pressed the paper to her chest, stayed there, note between her fingers, unsure if it was a promise or farewell. Either way, it was the truest thing he'd left her. The message arrived mid-afternoon. No name, just a single line. "If you still trust me, come to the South Pier tonight." Clara stared until the words blurred. The number was wrong, but the rhythm, short, deliberate, felt like him. Matteo caught her expression. "Don't," he said. "You don't belong in this war." She slipped the phone into her coat. "No," she said, "but he belongs in my life." She kept walking until the figures ahead took shape. Raphael stood among them, rain slicking his hair to his brow. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. When he saw her, something flickered, surprise, relief, regret, and vanished before it could settle. "I thought you wouldn't come." "I'm tired," she said. "Tired of letting you be the only one fighting. You shouldn't be here. Neither should you." She stepped closer. For a second, he almost smiled. Then she pulled something from her pocket, a small gun wrapped in cloth. "You taught me how to survive," she said, handing it to him. "Now let me help you live." Raphael hesitated, then nodded once. No orders this time, no shield between them, just a silent understanding that whatever happened next, they faced it together. The rain intensified, a steady roar against the metal roofs. Mateo checked his watch, murmured something about the timing. Across the pier, headlights flickered once, twice, then the echo of boots against concrete filled the space. Vance's men. Raphael motioned silently. His group split into pairs, taking positions behind crates. Clara followed his gestures, moving to cover near the corner. Her pulse kept time with the rain. The first gunfire came fast, loud enough to swallow thought. Bullets tore through wooden panels. Sparks flashed against steel. She crouched lower, breathing in dust and salt. "Stay down," Raphael called out. "I'm fine," she answered, though her hands trembled around the flashlight she'd grabbed earlier. Mateo leaned out to return fire. A shot cracked too close. He fell back with a groan, clutching his shoulder. Clara moved before thinking, sliding across wet concrete to drag him behind cover. "Leave me," he gasped. "Shut up," she muttered, pressing her palm to the wound. Blood mixed with rainwater, thin and red. Raphael saw it. His eyes locked with hers across the chaos. He jerked his head toward the barrels. She understood immediately. She pulled the pin on a smoke canister from Mateo's belt and rolled it forward. Gray fog erupted, swallowing light and direction. Raphael moved through it like instinct, fast and exact. Two men dropped before they realized where he was. When the smoke thinned, only a few of Vance's men were left. They hesitated, thrown by the precision by the woman who refused to die quietly. One charged. Clara grabbed Mateo's fallen gun and fired. The recoil jarred her shoulder, but the body fell clean. She didn't look away. Raphael reached her, scanning for wounds. "You hurt." She shook her head. He missed. Rain and dirt ran down their faces, blurring into one. "You listened," he said. "For once." They lifted Mateo between them, retreating into the shelter of the warehouse. Sirens wailed somewhere beyond the storm. Raphael leaned against a pillar gun, still ready. "You could have died." "I know," she said, wringing water from her sleeve. "Fear doesn't vanish. You just move anyway." He watched her, something close to calm crossing his face. "So that's courage." "No," she said, sitting beside him on the cold floor. "That's surviving together." They stayed like that. Rain drummed steady overhead, a rhythm kind enough to believe in. Two people no longer on opposite sides of anything, waiting for whatever came next. The rumor reached them before midnight. Vance was hiding in the factory off Archer Avenue. Raphael began gathering his men before the words had even settled. Clara stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "I'm coming." He didn't look up. "No, he still has the photos. If I don't go, this never ends." He finally met her eyes, panic flickering and gone. "I can't focus with you there." "Then don't," she said. "Just trust me." For a moment he looked ready to argue. Then he exhaled and nodded once. The city blurred past streetlights, bleeding into fog asphalt, shining like wet steel. The factory loomed ahead, roof half collapsed. They entered through a side door, boots quiet, guns drawn. Heat clung to the walls. Pipes hissed overhead. Every sound carried the grind of steps, the scrape of metal. Vance's voice sliced through it, smooth and sharp. "You're late, Lazaro. I thought you'd learned fear." He stood on the catwalk, above gun flashing under a bare bulb. "You were the best of us," he said. "Then you got soft. Weak men die for love." Raphael didn't answer. One clean shot cut upward, dropping a man beside Vance. Then the world broke open. Gunfire tore the silence apart. Sparks spat from the railings. Clara ducked behind a crate, counting breaths. The roar of metal and bullets filled her skull. Vance's men swarmed. Raphael moved like memory, fast, deliberate, cutting through the dark. Still, they pressed in. A stray bullet shattered glass above her. She crawled toward a stack of barrels, knees stinging. Then she heard him close calm. "You should have stayed home, Miss Duval." Vance stepped out of the haze gun leveled at her chest. "He killed my brother," he said. "You'll die in his place." Clara's pulse pounded in her throat. "No," she said. "I die for my own reasons." She raised Raphael's gun and fired. The shot hit his shoulder, knocking him back. He lunged. They crashed to the floor. The gun slid away. His weight crushed her ribs. Fingers clamped around her throat. Her hand found a shard of glass. She drove it upward twice until his grip broke. Vance's shout turned into a gasp, then stopped. His body sagged heavy and unmovable. Clara lay still beneath him, chest heaving. Her hands shook so badly she couldn't feel the cuts. When Raphael reached her, he froze at the sight. "Clara." She pushed Vance's body aside, sitting up slowly. Her voice rasped. "He would have killed me." Raphael knelt, eyes wide. "You killed him. I did what you taught me," she said. "To live." Something in his face broke, not pride, not pity, something raw. He pulled her up. Behind them, Matteo shouted orders, rounding the wounded. The fight sputtered out within minutes. Sirens grew nearer. Flames climbed the rafters, licking the black ceiling. Matteo was hit in the leg, pale but conscious. Raphael lifted him toward the van, blood slick on his palms. "Stay awake," he muttered again and again. Clara sat on a low wall watching the factory burn. Raphael joined her clothes streaked with soot. "We won," he said. She watched the fire. "No, we survived." He didn't argue. Rain softened to mist. She leaned against his shoulder, eyes half closed. The quiet between them ran deep beyond words. By dawn, the flames were gone, smoke drifting over the river. Raphael's hand found hers, hesitant, uncertain, but there. They stayed until light changed, until the world felt ready to begin again. Not clean, not new, just possible. Weeks passed before the city remembered itself. Snow drained from the gutters. Headlines turned to baseball and politics, and no one mentioned the bodies on Archer Avenue. Raphael was gone. Matteo lived limping but alive. He called once from the hospital, voice thin but amused. "You still bake?" he asked. "Someone has to keep the world warm." The hearth stayed closed. Its sign had split through the middle, hanging like an unfinished sentence. Clara didn't fix it. Some things needed to rest before they could be rebuilt. She found a small apartment near Humboldt Park, cheap sunlit in the morning's walls, smelling faintly of paint and old coffee. She scrubbed the counters herself, unpacked slow. It wasn't home yet, but it was hers. Eli started a new school. Quieter now, though his drawings still filled every margin with color. Some afternoon she walked him to the park, waiting while he ran until laughter caught the wind. Days settled into rhythm, coffee bus, bakery shift. The scent of sugar and yeast followed her home. Sometimes while kneading dough, she caught herself humming tunes she didn't recognize. June, the owner, once asked if someone waited for her. Clara only smiled. 2 weeks earlier, she'd cut her hair, nothing symbolic, just the relief of weight falling away. At night, the apartment held its small peace. She opened her notebook, her handwriting steadier now. "I don't need saving anymore," she wrote. "But someone made me believe I was worth saving." The words landed softly, not as pain, but release. One afternoon, Matteo stopped by Kane tapping against the hall tiles. He looked older, the sharpness in his eyes dulled but intact. "You've gone domestic," he said, catching the smell of bread from the oven. She poured him tea. "Try it. Easier than being shot at." He laughed softly, then slid a thin envelope from his coat. "He asked me to deliver this." Her fingers hesitated before taking it, a folded letter and a photograph of the hearth, half-rebuilt scaffolding rising behind the old brick. The letter read, "I had to leave to finish what we started. Staying would only drag you back under. If I return, I want there to be something still standing. R." A faint fingerprint smudged the corner ink, not quite dry. She read it twice. No promises, no apologies, just truth. The only language he'd ever spoken well. "He's in Italy," Matteo said. "Cleaning up what's left. Says it's the last thing he owes the world." She nodded, folding the letter back into its envelope. He never did know how to rest. "Neither do you," he replied, standing. "That's why you two found each other." When he left, the apartment felt lighter, not emptier. She set the photo on the shelf above her desk beside Eli's drawing of their old cafe. That night, she tucked Eli in. The city murmured below. "Mom," he whispered, "is he coming back?" She smoothed his hair. "People who mean what they say," she said, "find a way to come back." He nodded, already drifting. She stayed until his breathing evened out. For the first time in months, she didn't wonder what came next. The world was still harsh, but her hands were steady, her heart quieter. Spring began its slow work. The call came just after dawn. Clara was packing Eli's lunch when the phone buzzed on the counter. A woman's voice, Officer Hayes, 11th District. Daniel Kerr had been arrested again, bar fight, broken bottle. He'd listed Clara as his emergency contact. They needed her statement to renew the restraining order. For a moment, she said nothing. The kettle whistled. Steam brushed her wrist. "I'll come in this afternoon," she said evenly. The precinct smelled of coffee and metal. Fluorescent lights hummed over scuffed tile. Clara stood at the desk while forms were typed and stamped. Her palms felt dry, her heartbeat steady. Through the glass, Daniel sat in a small room, cuffs on hair streaked with gray. When he saw her, he smiled, a warped curve she remembered too well. So he said, voice rough, "You finally look like someone." She met his gaze, unflinching. "And you still look like a man who needs someone else to blame." He laughed, short and bitter. "You think you've changed." "No," she said quietly. "I just stopped being afraid." His smile faltered, the kind of crack that appears before something collapses. The officer called her into the adjoining room for the statement. Standard questions, history of violence, dates, prior incidents. Then gently, "You can withdraw the old complaint if you'd prefer." "Start clean." Clara shook her head. "I don't want it gone. May I ask why?" "So it stays on record," she said. "So the next woman doesn't have to prove he's dangerous." The officer nodded once, writing it down without another word. When it was over, Clara stood in the hall again. Daniel stared through the glass lips, moving with no sound. She didn't try to read them. By the time she got home, the sky had turned a sharp, clean blue. Eli was at school. The apartment quiet. The pendant was small, silver, dented along one edge, her mother's once. She'd worn it through everything the night she fled. Daniel, the opening of the hearth, the storm that brought Raphael bleeding to her door. It had been armor, or maybe a tether. She unclasped it and set it on the table. For a while, she only looked, then took a small wooden box from the drawer and laid the necklace in it. On a scrap of paper, she wrote, "Thank you. I can walk on my own now." The lid clicked shut, no lighter, just clearer, like glass, wiped clean after years of dust. That weekend, she took the train to Joliet. The nursing home sat near the edge of town halls, painted with faded flowers. Her mother was in the garden, wrapped in a blanket, despite the mild air. "You cut your hair," her mother said when Clara bent to hug her. "I got tired of carrying it. How's the food here terrible? Bring me home and feed me something real." It wasn't a plea, but a command, same as when Clara was 10 and refused her vegetables. 2 days later, she signed the papers, packed a small canvas bag, and brought her home. On the ride back, her mother watched the fields pass. "You always find your way back," she murmured. The apartment changed again, another heartbeat added to its rhythm. The kettle sang, the radio played. Eli's laughter drifted from his room as he showed his grandmother his drawings. They ate soup and warm bread. No celebration, just heat spreading through the small kitchen. When Clara washed the dishes, her mother hummed an old tune, thin and steady but alive. Clara dried her hands, turned off the light, and let the hum linger. It wasn't happiness, not exactly just peace that didn't ask for witnesses. The afternoon moved, slow sunlight pressing through the shop's front windows, the ceiling fan tracing circles over trays of bread. Clara was stacking pastries when she heard a low, dry voice. "Coffee's still weak here." Her hands froze. The scoop clinked against the tray. She turned, uncertain if she'd imagined it. Raphael stood near the counter, thinner, darker from sun. The old sharpness was gone. He looked like any man stopping in after work, tired, ordinary. "You're supposed to be on another continent," she said. "I finished early." The moment stretched between them, surprise tangled with disbelief. She wiped her palms on her apron. "You look—" She hesitated normal. A faint smile crossed his face. "That's a first." They sat at the corner table, 2 cups of coffee between them. "I'm out," he said finally. "No one left to chase. Mateo runs things now. I just walked away." The way he said it, calm and flat, made it sound both impossible and true. His hands rested on the table, rougher than she remembered nails trimmed too short. "What does someone like you do after walking away? I'm still figuring that out," he said. "Maybe learn how to live without being watched." Clara studied him. The suit was gone, replaced by a faded shirt, the collar uneven. A thin scar ran along his wrist. He didn't hide it. "So you came here," she said. "I came to see if the coffee was still bad." That almost made her laugh. Almost. He reached into his pocket, placed a small brass key on the table. The metal glinted in the weak light. "The hearth," he said. "The old place. I kept it. Thought maybe we could start again, not like before. Just real." She stared at the key. The edges were worn smooth like something held too long. When she picked it up, the cool metal pressed into her palm. "Okay," she said simply. He exhaled as if the word itself released something long held. No grand gesture followed. He leaned closer, their foreheads touching for a breath. The quiet between them said everything. No promises, just the weight of shared breath. They closed the shop together. The streets shimmered with leftover heat. Raphael swept the floor without being asked, his movements slow, deliberate. When he carried a crate to the back, Eli burst through the door, waving a drawing. The boy froze, then grinned. "You came back." Raphael crouched arms wide. "Someone had to make sure your mom still lets you drown pizza in cheese." "She doesn't," Eli said. "Says it ruins the balance." "She's right." Raphael laughed, lifting him easily, spinning once. "But rules can bend." Clara watched towel still in hand. Their laughter filled the shop, bouncing off shelves and trays. It didn't sound like the old hearth or the nights they'd survived. It felt smaller, lighter, like breathing after holding it too long. When Eli ran upstairs, Raphael stayed to stack chairs. "You sure about this?" he asked. "No," she said. "But I'm done being sure of the wrong things." His mouth curved more relief than smile. Later they sat on the back steps. The city smelled faintly of dust and rain, sky bruised with late summer. "I don't know what to do now," he said. "Start by helping with the morning shift." He looked over, half amused. Invitation or order? A little of both. Her laughter came easy this time. A breeze moved through the alley, carrying the scent of bread that would be ready by dawn. They stayed until the streetlights came on and the world softened, not perfect, not new, but calm enough to hold. 6 months after reopening, the hum of talk had become part of it, steady as the smell of bread. On the wall hung a photograph, the night of the fire smoke rising over a half-collapsed roof. Clara insisted it stay not as decoration, but as proof that things could burn and still return. The tables were mismatched, the espresso machine wheezed, the floor creaked near the back door, but people came anyway. Curiosity at first, then comfort. It felt warm here. Raphael worked behind the counter, sleeves rolled drying glasses. He still carried the quiet of someone who'd lived 2 lives, though the sharpness had worn to gentleness. When someone whispered about who he'd been, he'd grin slightly and say, "That guy's dead." Clara never corrected him. In a way, it was true. Eli had learned to handle the oven without burning his hands. He stood on a small stool, pressing dough with the focus of a scientist. "Like this," Clara said, guiding his fingers along the edge. "Don't force it. Let it shape itself." He squinted. "Like people." She smiled. Exactly like people. Behind them, Raphael rinsed mugs, half listening, half humming something under his breath. Every once in a while, he'd reach over to adjust a tray or refill the sugar jar. The rhythm between them, small, domestic, unspoken, had replaced all the grand gestures they used to need. The letter from Italy came on a Tuesday. Matteo's handwriting was bold, the ink pressed deep into the paper. If you're reading this, I'm finally done with debts. Tell Raphael I stopped keeping count, and tell you, yes, you that I was wrong about people. Turns out one or two are worth trusting. The envelope held a small photograph of a chapel on a hill sunlight catching the bell tower. No signature, just the letter, the picture, and silence. Raphael found Clara reading it at the counter after closing. She slid it toward him without a word. He read, nodded once, then placed the letter back in its envelope. Matteo never believed in heaven, he said quietly. Maybe he changed his mind. Maybe he just found peace. They lit a candle that night on the shelf beside the old photo of the fire. The flame flickered small and stubborn, while the rest of the city outside kept moving. When the wick burned low, Raphael blew it out, and they opened the doors for the evening rush. By autumn, the hearth felt like it had always existed. Regulars came in without waiting for menus. A young couple got engaged at table 3. A mail carrier stopped daily for soup. Life folded itself into the place so completely that sometimes Clara forgot how close it had come to disappearing. She no longer looked over her shoulder when someone new walked in. Fear had been replaced by a different kind of awareness, one that saw danger as something that had already passed through her and left only space behind. On a late afternoon in October, the last customers drifted out. Raphael stacked chairs wiped the counter with slow circular motions. Clara flipped the sign to closed and turned off the main lights, leaving only the warm glow from the kitchen. Eli had gone upstairs to finish homework. The quiet settled easily familiar. Raphael came up behind her, his arm brushing her side, before it settled around her waist. So he said, voice low, "What do we do now?" Clara leaned against him, her body relaxing in that way it hadn't known how to for years. "We live," she said. He laughed softly as if the answer were both too simple and exactly right. No one truly escapes their past. They learn how to carry it differently. The hearth wasn't just a restaurant rebuilt from ashes. It was proof that even the most broken places can hold warmth again. Clara and Raphael didn't find a fairy tale ending, only the courage to live honestly after ruin. May we all learn to rebuild like that without perfection, but with quiet strength and a little light that refuses to go out.